On Wednesday, you all did task 8.2, where we talked about factoring quadratics. So we're going to take some notes before you start 8.3 that might help guide your thinking in this task. So take out your math workbooks or your math notebooks. And at the top of your next blank page, let's write factoring quadratics. You all can pause this video as you need to catch up. My only request is that you're not yelling and screaming like, pause the video, like I know that you have done in your language arts class when Ms. Lauer has not been here. So be polite, be patient, pause the video when you need, take out your math workbooks. We're going to take some notes on factoring quadratics. So let's remind ourselves that a quadratic function is written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. In task 8.2, all of the quadratic functions that we looked at had an a value equal to 1. So when a equals 1, our quadratic function is just going to look like x squared plus bx plus c, where c is a constant and b is a coefficient. So when we look back like at numbers 12 from 8.2, you all see how we had x squared, so our coefficient would be a 1 there, plus 7x plus 10. 7 would be our coefficient, 10 would be our constant. In B, there's no coefficient for our x squared. 3 is our coefficient for x, 10 is our constant. Do you guys kind of remember that? Hopefully you do. So maybe in parentheses we'll just write task 8.2 so we can go back and remind ourselves in our workbooks. Okay, so our steps to factoring. Step 1, we want to look at all of the factors of the constant. Step 2, we want to choose which, let's see if I can spell correctly, which factors will add together to equal b, which is our coefficient for the x. And then 3, we want to pay close attention to the sign of our constant. Okay, pause this if you need to continue writing, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to an example so we can use this. So let's think about the expression x squared plus 7x plus 10. Our first step says we want to look at all of the factors of the constant. Well, our constant is 10, so factors of 10, step 1 would be factors of 10. We can multiply 1 times 10 to equal 10, and we can multiply 2 times 5 to equal 10. Our second step is to choose which of these factors are going to add up to equal b, which in this case is 7. So our second step would be which factors add up to 7. Well, 1 and 10 makes either 11 or 9 if we were subtracting something. 2 and 5 makes 7. So 2 and 5 is going to be our factor choice. 10 is positive, 7 is positive. So I'm going to say x plus 2 times x plus 5. Because 2 is a factor, 5 is a factor. If we were to check this, which I would suggest you always do, we want to say x plus 2 times x plus 5. We can draw our box, x and 2, x plus 5. This would be x squared, this would be 5x, this would be 2x, and this one would be 10. We add it all together and we get x squared plus 5x plus 2x is going to give us 7x plus 10. So it checks out. Pause if you need to. We're going to move on to another example. Okay, let's look at one that has a negative constant. So let's look at the example x squared plus 3x minus 10. Our 10 is negative, which tells us that one of our factors is going to have to be positive and one of our factors is going to have to be negative. We'll get to that in just a second. So our first step is to list the factors of 10, which we've already done in our last problem. So we know that 1 times 10 is 10, and we know that 2 times 5 is 10. Our second step is to choose the factors of 10 that will add up to give us 3. So which factors add up to equal 3? Well, we know one of these numbers is going to be positive and one is going to be negative. So we could do 10 plus negative 1. That's going to give us 9. We could do negative 1 plus 10. That's what I just said. We could do 1 plus negative 10. That would give us negative 9. So neither of those work. Here we could do 2 plus negative 5, which would give us negative 3. Not what we're looking for. Or we could do 5 plus negative 2, which would give us 3, so that would work. So one of our factors is going to be positive 5, x plus 5, and our other factor is going to be negative 2, x minus 2, or x plus a negative 2. Let's check it to see if it'll work. X plus 5 times x minus 2. We can do our box method. X plus 5. X minus 2. X times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. X times positive 5 is 5x. And 5 times negative 2 is a negative 10. We get x squared plus negative 2 plus 5x is going to add up to be positive 3x. And then our negative 10 minus 10. That matches our original expression, so it checks out. We're right. Okay, pause if you need to. We're going to do one more example together. For this example, we are going to look at, let's say, x squared minus 10x plus 24. One thing that we should be noticing here is that even though our constant is positive, our b value, or our coefficient for our x, is negative. So that right there should tell us that even though our constant is positive, both of our factors should have negative numbers in them. A negative times a negative is going to give us a positive, but a negative plus a negative will give us the negative for our b value. So our first step is going to be to find factors of 24. So we have 1 and 24. We have 2 and 12. We have 3 and 8. And we have 4 and 6. So we want to know now which factors are going to add up to equal negative 10. Which factors add to negative 10? Well, 1 and 24, we know that doesn't make sense. 3 and 8, that's going to be 11. That doesn't make sense. So now we're down to 2 and 12, or 4 and 6. So we know both of these values are going to have to be negative, because negative times a negative is a positive. So negative 2 plus negative 12 That's going to give us negative 14, which is not what we're looking for. So that one is not going to work. Negative 4 and negative 6, if we add those together, we get negative 10. That works. So let's see, x minus 4 times x minus 6 should be our correct answer. Let's check it just to make sure. X minus 4 times x minus 6. We'll get x squared minus 6x minus 4x. Negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. Add it all together, x squared negative 6x minus 4x. It's going to give us minus 10x and then a positive 24. That matches our original equation, so that is correct. Today's task, you're going to be doing something very similar, but instead of your a value equaling 1, your a value is going to be a different number. So you're going to be factoring, it's just going to be a little bit trickier. So be patient, work through it, and you guys are going to be great. All right?